Hello and welcome everyone. Today is the third part of our series about our nice UNIO ecosystem with a very special topic, the 9401A. So a device we already released some time ago. We now already started shipping, and it's a very interesting device because it's related to a topic that somehow gets hotter and hotter all the time. It's so-called audio over IP. And I can be really open with you, being a sound engineer myself, but more from the music production background. I also was not so much into audio over IP, and of course I realized that all of my colleagues from the broadcast sector and also from the live side spoke about it from time to time. But it was interesting for me to also dig into this, and you will realize today, from time to time, I simply might read from my slides, which usually is not the case. But this time you will, I think, also realize that it is for good reason, because the stuff is a little complex. But hopefully you will just realize that the 9401 is a powerful device, that it can be a great selection for your studio environment if you are into multi-channel audio, for example, if you want to do immersive, or if you just really are also working in the broadcast sector or in larger post-production facilities, which also make use of audio over IP. Yeah, and hopefully I'm also able to show you the basics of the standards we are referring to, like Ravenna. Yeah, and then, let's just start. Great, thanks a lot. For my colleague Jaakko in Finland, it's already 1 hour later, so it's complete darkness. Here in Germany, it's only, let's say, semi-dark, but in Finland, it's almost night. So thanks to Jaakko for running this show again with us. Yeah, as said, this is part of UNIO, and UNIO is our ecosystem that just wants to make sure that you can get reliable and truthful sound reproduction, no matter if you're using speakers or also, for example, headphones. So if you have missed the first 2 parts of this webinar, probably you can just check them out on YouTube. They are still available. And in part 2, I was talking about our PRM solution, which just offers you really reliable sound reproduction, also, for example, for immersive audio using binauralized playback with our 9320A, which is a nice device that is a controller and at the same time an interface, and at the same time it has a very high-class reference headphones output, and the 8550, which is a pair of headphones that is the perfect match for this 9320 to give you a really almost mobile solution to immersive audio and to multi-channel audio using a binauralized way, for example, using Oral ID. Speakers are really, the core business we do still. And you know that we have SAM, the Smart Active Monitoring concept, for a long time now available for you, which offers you DSP filters in the monitors that can be set with our GLM, Genelec Loudspeaker Manager, to ensure that we can adapt the speakers to your room. And so make sure that the playback is not colored too much by the room acoustics, which are usually, still a very, very important factor in everything we do. And as mentioned, a new solution, if you want to work with headphones, is the PRM, the Personal Reference Monitoring Bundle, which is 9320 and 8550. And you'll also get the measurement microphone so you can calibrate your system with the PRM. This guy you might already know. It's always the same one doing these webinars. I'm Marcel from Germany, and I'm working as a customer experience specialist. So I want to optimize your experience, and I want to help you in achieving the best experience that is possible. We are absolutely live, and therefore please make use of the option that you can ask questions and just enter your questions into the comments section, no matter where you are, if it's LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook. And we'll just go through all of them at the end of this webinar, and I'll do my best to give you answers. Otherwise, I know the right guys who can definitely give you correct answers. We'll start with just a short statement. So what is the 9401? For us, it offers you full integration of Ravenna, ST2110, and AES67 audio over IP technologies into any SAM speaker system. And as said, of course, as a sound engineer, I heard about Ravenna, I heard about AES67, I heard a little bit about ST2110, but actually I did not know that much about it. And let's just, change this together. Once again, of course, I will not, cover the in-depth technology concept of something like AES67. There are a lot of papers available on the internet. So if you want to dig into this a little deeper, just do so. In general, audio over IP, the name says what it should be doing. We want to reach audio transmission via normal IP networks. That's the aim of everything. And you will realize it's harder than you think to get this working in a appropriate and really precise way. We want to reach multi-channel audio with flexible routing options, because this is one of the strengths of every network, that it offers you flexible routing. And if we achieve a good solution for audio over IP, it is a really good option for complex setups with a lot of channels. For example, in broadcast. This is why these guys are so keen on audio over IP. If you ever, read about, for example, how complex the audio setup of a show like the Eurovision Song Contest is, then you realize audio over IP is a very important part of what they do. If you transmit a lot of channels via a single cable, for example, a network cable, you can, of course, reduce costs. And the complete cabling setup is easier and, of course, cheaper in general. And then, as said, this is the perfect solution for multi-channel audio formats like Dolby Atmos, for example, or immersive formats, because you want to have access to, let's say, a lot of channels compared to stereo. For example, for 916, it's already 16 channels. And then it's, of course, always interesting to find a nice, straightforward solution in doing so. This illustrates what I was just telling you. On the left side, you have a traditional, breakout box and multi-core cabling. And this can become pretty complex, especially if it's no longer, let's say, just for a band with, let's say, 32 channels. If it's several hundred channels, for example, and this is easily the case in huge broadcast projects, this just is not, doable anymore. And therefore, this, nice solutions looking like regular network switches and regular network cables are very attractive. There's always a challenge in life. Nothing is just easy to do. So, of course, there's a challenge with audio over IP, because standard networks never had been designed for real-time applications, because usually networking means that you have something you just transmit over the network, and usually it's just it's just small parts and pieces, and all of them are somehow completed at the end at the receiver. And usually it does not matter that much. For example, if you stream something from YouTube, and this is just a complete file lying somewhere on a server, of course your computer will have to know that it cannot start streaming before everything is completed. So before you don't have all of the bits and pieces of the image and of the audio, it will just not start streaming. But if it starts streaming, somehow the complete thing is reconstructed on your computer already, and then everything will be for sure in sync. Different things can happen, for example, with live streams. This is also one example, where we, of course, usually don't have an audio over IP structure. This is more regular, really regular network structure. And from time to time, you might realize, for example, in the last webinar, sometimes the audio was a little late, and then, I just speed it up, and then everything was in sync again. So exactly these things can happen. An easy way to ensure that you are not getting too many conflicts is usually that you block all other types of media, so that you just stop traffic on the network that is not audio related. This is one way of doing it, because you have one priority. This is audio, and a precise uncompressed audio transmission. And therefore, of course, for example, you should not download something at the same time. And in the beginning, because there had been these challenges, companies like Riedel, for example, had their RockNet. And RockNet just somehow gave you pre-configured hardware. So you had special cables, special switches and devices that just had been optimized already. So you could not use regular switches, for example, or regular cabling. Everything was just done exactly for this solution. These already worked very good, in a very good way. But as said, you could not use standard components. And the advantage of these proprietary, some words are impossible for German. Yeah. Things like RockNet have the advantage that all parameters are known. And if you just make sure that the hardware was tested, you can, of course, give this piece of hardware to your customer, and it will work the same way like it did when you checked it. And this is, of course, usually never the case if you have regular network components, because then it can be, a switch from manufacturer A, another location will have another switch, and things are never really exactly the same. And this makes it really hard. And to somehow find a solution to handle these problems, some clever guys already introduced in 2010 something called Ravenna. I only knew this city, from Italy, but this is the name of it, Ravenna. And it was developed by the Media Networking Alliance from Germany. And Ravenna is an open standard, which, first of all, of course, is just really cool because everyone can take part. Everyone can, also develop things. And and there are no problems with licensing, for example. Ravenna makes sure that you have high priority for high quality and low latency audio. But as said, the important thing, using just regular Ethernet networks with regular network components. It was primarily designed for professional audio and broadcast because these guys just need it. And you can make use of existing network infrastructures. So if there is already a network, for example, at your location, you can make use of this. So compared to something like Riedel, where you had in the past, this is nowadays it's also different, where it was just mandatory that you only used, these components for your audio. And the development is, in general, always still, of course, going on. There's a so-called Ravenna partner group, and somehow the leader of everything is the ALC Networks, a company in Munich. So if you want to apply for joining it and just developing it, just send all your details to this company. Some key benefits of Ravenna, as already said, it has a low latency and high quality audio. So it's perfectly suitable for live sound broadcasting in studio environments. Also, for example, just if you're doing a live recording of an orchestra, you can imagine there are a lot of channels then that are somehow coming into the system at the same time. And of course, they should also reach your computer and your DAW at the same time. So it would be, a little critical if the violins, for example, just had a dropout and the cello did not, and then it will sound a little different in the end. What's a key term here, and once again, wonderful to pronounce for a German, it's interoperability, which means that you can just combine components from different manufacturers and they can understand each other, which is not, it's not always the case. Same with human beings. It would be perfect if we would also have a higher degree of interoperability. Instead of that, we are somehow struggling with, who we are, where we come from, in which country we live, and why people in other countries might be an enemy for us. So we should probably ask the inventors from Ravenna if there's an option to get this interoperability for other parts of life as well. But in the context of Ravenna and also AES67, I will mention that later, it just means that, components from different manufacturers can talk to each other. For example, a 9401 can understand, of course, data coming from different devices that also speak Ravenna. Ravenna has a great scalability, so you can really just, adapt it to your needs. So if it's a smaller studio, if it's a smaller immersive setup, it's possible, but it can also do really high channel counts needed for large broadcast shows. Also important, the moment you have something that is critical, for example, for recording, for broadcasting, there always should be redundancy. So that if something goes wrong, it should not be a showstopper. There always should be, an option B that still works. So for example, you can have two independent networks. Both of them are connected to the Ravenna network. And if network A fails, network B can just take over absolutely seamlessly. So hopefully you will not even realize that there was a problem. And then hopefully you are fast enough to fix network A before network B fails. But of course, this usually, luckily, does not happen, because in general, these structures are pretty solid. We have a so-called precision time protocol, also PTP. Not only Genelec is using 3-letter abbreviations, and this is used to synchronize the audio streams across the devices, because you can imagine, especially clocking and things like that is pretty critical if you have 2 or 3 devices talking to each other, and then this precision time protocol ensures that you have an accuracy of within a microsecond, which is enough, fair enough. Ravenna is, as said, open, so non-proprietary standard, and all manufacturers can just adapt it. And this is, for example, one of the strengths of it. So probably, for example, if you are more into the live business, I'm pretty sure you know Dante. And Dante is also an audio over IP format established by the Australian manufacturer Audinate. A very, very well-established standard. For example, we are also using Dante for our smart IP stuff, so for all of our installation things. But of course, Audinate will charge you at some point, for example, to implement hardware from them that is then part of your speaker and things like that. And this is one difference, for example, to Ravenna. And this is also, I think, one of the reasons, because actually Dante is really well established everywhere because it just works. It's really a good format. But Ravenna and also AES67, so all of these open standards are, of course, a great alternative, especially if people just continue to work on it. And this is, I think, one of the main reasons that it is one of the most interesting formats for broadcasters. Yeah, and this is the logo you usually see, which shows the already mentioned Ravenna. And then in addition, AES67 and ST2110 built in. So this is also part of the complete umbrella. And I will now try to explain to you what somehow these 2 other formats have to do with it. And but actually you will see there are a lot of similarities, because all of them want to give you a reliable audio over IP transmission. And so, of course, all of them have the same tasks, like, for example, synchronization, like making sure that you can distribute uncompressed audio so that no codecs are used, that it's always a PCM stream, for example. And all of these formats take care that this is the case. So AES67 is introduced 2013, so a little later, by the well-known Audio Engineering Society. In case you did not know that, this AES is just meaning Audio Engineering Society. So, for example, AES-EBU also contains this, association. It's Also an open standard, and was focusing even more on this interoperability. Excuse me for the word, I would need a button to just, play it back. Requirements, because somehow this was then, somehow hand in hand with Ravenna, that they used the AES67 standard then to make sure that just, all manufacturers who follow this standard, the AES67 standard, can talk to each other, I would say. As said, it also allows exchange of uncompressed, low latency audio streams. And somehow it has become the de facto standard for ensuring that you can have different devices talking to each other. The key benefits of AES67 are similar to Ravenna. So you have a real-time transport protocol that just makes sure that you can transport audio and everything is in sync. There are also parts that make sure that if you start a session, for example, or for example, if components are just showing up on the network, that all of this is just realized and managed in a appropriate way. Because most of these networks make it really easy. For example, you just have a network already running AES67, and then, for example, you bring in a device like the 9401, and then you can easily find it on the network using, for example, one of the routing softwares they are offering. So there is no, looking for IP addresses and configuring them. It's similar to, as said, if you have a Dante device and you just start the Dante controller, and the Dante device will be shown. And to make things like this possible, you will have to make sure that somehow everything introduces itself in the right and appropriate way. And being a keyboard player, of course, MIDI is always with me, and I think we will use it forever, although it's a really old standard. But AES67 can also do MIDI, because it's really used somehow, sometimes for live performance, for example, to still also, control a few things. But yeah, it's a little, I have to say it's a little nostalgic feeling if you're talking about MIDI in a context like this. Yeah, we have uncompressed audio already mentioned, because this is what professional, sound engineers want to achieve. And you can use every, standard Ethernet structure. So regular stuff like Cat5 or higher, and regular switches, usually they should be managed, but there is no need for, really expensive specialized hardware. And just exactly to mention it, because we have spoken about low latency, so we are here in the range of a few milliseconds to tens of milliseconds. So this is really, really low and fast. And you already have seen PTP. This is also, of course, part of AES67. Applications are mainly, as said, broadcasting and recording studios, especially if it's a larger studio with, several rooms, and they want to, for example, exchange audio between these rooms, or you are sitting in a control room and you have 2 or 3 recording rooms, let's say one, booth with a drum set, then a booth for, brass section, another booth for a singer. And then, of course, it's really cool if you only have to do, the routing by clicking a few things, because everything is on the network. So there's no need that someone, just is patching cables and then a cable is broken, and things that, of course, never happen in a professional studio, but it makes things way easier. And in live sound, of course, you have seen, the first image with this multi-core and the stage box. Everywhere where you have to place a lot of microphones, you will just be way faster if you use something like audio over IP. Yeah, and finally, ST2110, so that you also know what this is about. And you see in the logo on the right side, SMPTE. And this is also something that you will see on a regular basis if you are into audio, similar to AES. And this stands for Society of Motion Picture and Television Engineers. So this is where this comes from. And they also establish standards clearly also coming from the broadcast to make their work easier. So this is also a comprehensive standard to have transmission of, and now it's important, not only audio, but also video and also metadata and a lot of other things. So this is somehow more like a container. And what we are talking about is, of course, the audio part of it. So ST2110 somehow breaks down these, components like the image, the video, and the sound and the metadata. And for example, what's important for us is the so-called 2110 minus 30, which just takes care of uncompressed audio, as you know from AES67 and from Ravenna. This is now something really special. If you are, a little deeper into this topic already, we just made sure that it's easy for us that the 9401 is, found on the network, and it's just, visible. And therefore, we support also NMOS. These are also two standards: NMOS IS04 and IS05. Please don't ask me what they exactly do, but this is, I think, worth mentioning for everyone who's from the broadcast sector. Yeah, and so after I have explained to you Ravenna AES67 and ST2110, we'll just add our 9401 because this unit can understand all of these formats. So it can perfectly be part of every network structure that follows Ravenna AES67 or ST2110. The unit itself is just, a 19-inch device and looks pretty much not so spectacular. If you're just looking at the front, we'll just go through it. So it's very, very straightforward. And also the backside is not that spectacular. What you can see, we have 4 ports, so 4 networking ports. And then we have this nice white box saying, do not connect to Ethernet. And with this, we mean that this is not, the part where audio over IP happens. This is just for our GLM network. And if you are with us already for a longer time, you know that GLM is a proprietary format. So this is not something you can send over IP. So you cannot put, for example, our network adapter to a standard switch and then connect it to the speakers. And therefore, this is only for GLM, because we, of course, make use of GLM to configure this device. And it's also then shown in your setup. And the ports that are of interest for you are these Ethernet ports saying AES67, ST2110. And because the network, for example, is redundant, the technology offers redundancy, we also have this here. So we have a secondary port and a primary port. And you can define what happens if, one of the ports fails. Then, luckily, finally, for the good old studio guys like me, we have also outputs I know. So these are the regular outputs for subwoofer link and aux stereo out. We'll talk about that soon. And the magic happens here. This is just one DB25 connector. And this DB25 connector makes it possible that you can connect up to 16 speakers, so up to 16 channels via regular AES, because this is the thing mentioned in the beginning. So this unit converts audio over IP to regular AES. Why is this important? Because our speakers have digital inputs. The SAM speakers have digital inputs, except 8320. Always beware of that. Yeah, and all SAM speakers except 8320 can just receive AES EBU signals and then are perfectly usable. And of course, we can be quite open. We just realized, the market asks for AES67. The market also offers some AES67 speakers that are just, I offer a direct input with AES67. And we thought, how can we make sure that people can just continue to use their systems? How can we make sure that we have the same scalability? Because this is, I think, one of the strengths we have, that we can just offer you a lot of speakers that are SAM compatible, and that you can perfectly scale the system from, as said, a small 8330 to a huge 1236. And if we would have started now to somehow implement AES67 in all of these speakers, we could do a lot of launches. But yeah, it will take us a lot of time, and especially people already using the SAM speakers. Probably, for example, they have just bought an immersive setup. Yeah, they now have the option to just go for AES67 with one device. So it's one device that is a bridge between the standards and our well-established so-called AES3. This is the official term. So that means we are converting audio over IP streams to our outputs. As said, we have 16 channels on this DB25 connector. I will show you in a second how this connector has to look like, because things can go wrong there for sure. And what's very important, the output is a bit-to-bit copy of the stream content. So there is absolutely nothing happening within the device. Because if we say it's somehow converting to AES3, this sounds a little strange, because actually it's just changing the format, how it is distributed. But the content itself is a bit-to-bit copy. So nothing is changed. And as mentioned, we have a dedicated subwoofer output for bass management, which makes this an even more powerful device. Because actually, for example, if you get a 9401, you have the full bass management options of a 9301. This is just included. And system is controlled via GLM. And of course, the routing can be done then via a web interface page. You will see this soon. Or a software like Annemann. Annemann is just software from Merging. And Merging is also one of the somehow heroes of AES67, Swiss company, and they offer these nice software tools. I already mentioned we have the redundancy, and somehow this is then the reason that we fulfill ST2022-7. I think I never ever had a presentation with so many numbers. But hey, let's be precise. This is Germany. We are talking about, technical product. There you go. So if you just want to have a nice, talk with your, wife, husband, girlfriend, I don't know. Have you ever heard about ST2022-7? By the way, it's pretty amazing what, for example, ChatGPT is doing here. So you can ask this wonderful AI tools these things. And because so many papers are published, because all of these associations, of course, they are from the research sector. So they write huge papers about it. That's brilliant for ChatGPT. So you will get very precise information. We always recommend a so-called gigabit Ethernet, and usually you always should use this if you are into audio over IP. Otherwise, the low latency is not reachable. So in the sub-millisecond area. And as said, we have one DB25 connector, and this runs 8 AES-EBU audio signals, and this means 16 channels. So for those of you who do not know this, AES-EBU usually is distributed by having 2 signals on one cable. So if you have your setup, a regular setup at home, stereo setup, for example, 9320 output AES to the first speaker, and then from there to the second speaker. And then you can just select flag A or B. So you can always make sure then in the end which channel is reproduced by the speaker. So we have 8 connectors on this cable, but of course it carries 16 audio channels. It's completely compatible with standard gigabit Ethernet on IP switches. We recommend the managed switch. Managed switch usually just gives you more options to configure. Sometimes you can also, of course, also fail. So sometimes it's better to not configure too much. But if you just think about it, and if you just follow a few, tutorials that are available, or also the manuals, there are just a few things you should optimize if it's about audio over IP. That's the same reason why we should use so-called QoS, which means quality of service, and multicast groups. This is also a way of everything is distributed. And yeah, I talked about this nice, front panel, and it's not that much, but I will show you what is visible there. So in the middle, above our nice Genelec logo, we have the big green button. It's not Genelec green, I have to say. I have to discuss this. It's a little brighter. And this, of course, is used to turn the device on. And usually it just shows you normal operation if it's on. If it's blinking green, then GLM is doing something, so you do some adjustments. And if you get a green blink every 10 seconds, then usually it means power save mode. This is similar to our SAM speakers. If there's no light, then you are in Finland, or there is no power and the power is off. And then we have just, 8 indicators for, 9 indicators. It's input 1 to 8 and the AUX. And these only show solid green if there is a valid digital audio signal. And if there is no light, there is no signal. Pretty easy. And it shows the input side, not the output side. Yeah, and this is the famous cable, or one option you should get. So officially it's called a DB25 connector with 8 times XLR male fan out, following the AES59 pin out, also known as Tascam analog standard. Now all together. Yeah. As I told you, it's about numbers today. And luckily it's not us causing it. We only have this 9401. For example, a working cable would be the Avid DB25 to XLR-M, so-called DigiSnake or DigiSnake. This is a very common cable, also well known in the broadcast sector. There are other manufacturers, of course, as well, but just make sure that they follow this AES59 pin out. And usually you can just tell them Tascam, then it's clear. One system of a system layout would be, you have your PC or Mac. You have, first of all, the basic, SAM infrastructure. For example, you have our 9320, or of course the GLM kit, also possible. And then we have the 9401, which is, first of all, also visible in GLM. So the moment you configure your setup, you will just see this device in the pool and you can drag it on the grid. The 9401 is connected to a regular Ethernet switch. And then it just depends. You can, for example, then get audio streams to the Ethernet switch from somewhere, I don't know where. You can also use your own computer, your DAW or Apple Music or whatever, to send AES67 stuff or Ravenna stuff to this Ethernet switch. And the Ethernet switch will just, send it to the 9401. And the 9401 will then make sure that you get output for your speakers, meaning that you get 16 speaker outputs and an auxiliary output. And you can already see what this AUX output can be used for. For example, you can make use of hearing stuff through headphones. So if you have AES67 streams and you want to check something on headphones, you can route this to the auxiliary outputs of the 9401. And then, for example, you can connect the auxiliary output to the digital input of the 9320. Because 9320 not only offers an AES EBU output, it also has an AES EBU input. So you can route the signal into the 9320 and then make use of the headphones output. And the subwoofer is always connected to the subwoofer link. So this is the separate output, and this is also an AES EBU output. So you will have to connect this subwoofer link output from the 9401 to the digital input of your SAM subwoofer. Once again, just a different view. This is also on the top of the unit that you can get an easy overview. So we have the speakers here using the DB25. We have AES out for the subwoofer link, and we have this AUX out, for example, for a headphone. You can, of course, also use this as an additional output. There's no problem with that. You can have an additional pair of speakers or whatever you like to. This is just an example, and from our thinking, it was for example to have a DAC that can give you headphones output like the 9320. And then of course the complete unit is just connected to the GLM network adapter, or of course the 9320. It also can just be part of the chain, of the regular daisy chain of your SAM speakers. And the source is just fed to these two ports, which are the AES67 Ravenna input ports. I mentioned that we have bass management included with the 9401, which is exactly the task of the 9301 usually, because if you have a subwoofer, for example, a 7360, you know that this subwoofer only has one digital input for 2 channels. The rest of the inputs are analog. And this means that you cannot do bass management in the digital domain without getting a 9301, which somehow creates a sum of all the input channels and sends this sum to your subwoofer in the digital domain. And this is exactly what we do with the 9401 as well. So if it's part of your system setup in GLM, you can click on it. So this is not in the main window, this is in the edit window of the group. And then you see you have a lot of options. So you can decide for every single channel, should this be bass managed? So let's say, for example, 1A, 1B is front channels, huge speakers, full range, no need for bass management, and I would just remove these 2 checkboxes. Let's say our ceiling speakers are smaller ones and they start at 5. Make sure that, for example, these should be bass managed. And with LFE channel, you can just select which channel carries the discrete LFE channel. So this is also important. I think I mentioned this before. Sometimes people get confused because especially in the home sector, we have AVRs and they just have a subwoofer output. And then everything that somehow makes some some bass noise is sent out to the subwoofer. Usually they send out a combination between bass management and LFE channel. But the LFE is a discrete channel, for example, part of your fill mix or of your Atmos mix. And the mixer usually should have taken care that only really specific content is on this LFE. If you talk about bass management, then it's simply the bass content of a regular channel. For example, left, right, surround left, things like that. And in the home, in the consumer market, of course, a lot of small speakers are used, and they just don't play lower than, for example, 100 or 90, and therefore a lot of receivers just always do bass management. If you have a setup from us, even an 8330 plays down to 45 hertz, so you can really think about if it makes sense to use this in full range, so don't apply bass management. This sometimes can really improve the complete immersive feeling. Of course, if the speakers need to do high SPL and you need also, or you do a lot of bass heavy stuff, then bass management can make perfect sense. But this is really a really good solution here, because you can just choose what should be bass managed and what should not be bass managed. You can also do 2 groups and you can then compare. For example, listening to something with the surround speakers bass managed, and then listen to the same stuff with having them in full range. And if you then have, let's say, for example, really, really good acoustical recording like Morten Lindberg is doing or stuff like that, probably you might hear a difference. Because I know that Morten, for example, is a huge fan also of full range, of course. Because this is some of the reality then. And if you sum up the bass of a lot of channels in one sub, it's always a little bit, it's somehow a compromise sometimes. And also make sure that, of course, you can have all of these checked, but then be aware of that your subwoofer will have to do a lot of stuff. So then, for example, you should make sure that it's not only one subwoofer playing. Then it can make sense, to have 2 subs and then just use a link out. And this will make it more, I would say it would just make it, you will get more headroom, but it also will improve the sound quality. Some specs, of course, very important. Every Genelec product has a nice specs, and this is no different. So you can, of course, find them at the website. And don't be afraid, I will not go through everything. So just that you see, once again, the standards we are using is ST2110-30. You remember that was the audio part of ST2110, AES67 and Ravenna. People asking for Dante. What could happen? I don't know. But what I can probably tell you, probably there could be a similar device doing Dante. Just mentioning. Pretty soon. So, but this was just, you never heard about that. It's just public on YouTube. But I think it's pretty obvious if we have this for Dante and, if we have this for Ravenna and AES67, and then of course Dante should also be covered. So we use 16 bits up to 32 bits. ISEBU itself only has 24 bits. Also some basic stuff, 24 bits still means 16.7 million, steps, compared to not even 65,000 of 16 bits. So this is always something I also, if I'm talking to students, this is something you really should always have on mind. 65,000 compared to 16.7 million. So there's a very, very good reason for recording in 24-bit and not with 16 bits. It's still shocking how good, regular 16-bit masters then in the end sound. But for a recording where you have, of course, dynamics, and if, for example, some levels might, kick in at minus 35 dB, then it, of course, is very, very useful that you have a lot of steps left here. The digital audio sample rate is then between 44.1 and 192. 192 is also the maximum our speakers support. And otherwise, very, very important, the conversion accuracy is just bit perfect. This is possible with digital signals. So there is no change. If someone tells you, I can hear a difference there, it's impossible. So I trust some people if they tell me they have very good ears and they are trained listeners. I always mention guys at Dolby, checking out codecs, and they have to compare the quality of codecs all day. And they are really good in just, finding the small artifacts, especially in certain, they sometimes really only listen to one type of a signal. Yeah? And then they are really good at it. But if someone is telling you that he could somehow realize that there's a change in the sound using the 9401, impossible. Operating temperature starts at 15 degrees, which is, this is not really suitable for Finland, I have to say, Jakob. But let's see. I'm missing at least the minus 30 here. And it's approximately 2 kilograms, and size is, just a regular 19-inch device with a height of 43 millimeters. I will end this nice session by, showing you stuff you can use for just using your computers to send audio over IP streams, because you don't need, for example, an AES67 interface to do so. You can use your computer, and I think this can be of huge interest for those of you who just want to have a really straightforward solution for immersive audio. So very established, for example, is the Dante virtual sound card, which is just a device that makes it possible that every computer can just, play back or can just send audio into a Dante network. And of course, we have similar things for AES67. There's this virtual audio device for Mac only, also by merging. And as you can see, this is just a screenshot from their website. They always show you the compatible standards. And the moment you see Ravenna check and AES67 check, you can already think, perfect, I can use this with my 9401. If you install this device, it will be visible as somehow in the system settings, where you can just then see the network discovery. And this was just a screenshot from my colleague Eric, who has the 9401 in use in his studio in Berlin as well to check out things. And then you see his MacBook Pro, and then just the second device is here. And this already means, the connection is established and you can start, just sending streams to this device. And if you want to configure the device itself, there is a so-called just a web page, which can be loaded from GLM. So you can just click on GLM settings, and then it will open your web browser and showing you this configuration page. And there you have all the needed information, especially for the network gurus, which I am not. Yeah, but you can see all of the needed information on this page. For me, the most important page there is just the routing option, so that I can just say, for example, once again, a screenshot from Eric. His MacBook Pro is now sending streams to, sorry for this. This is just the main out connector. And you can then just click on, which channel, for example, 2B means it is the AES cable 2 flag B from this DB25 output. Yeah, and then you're done. Yeah, exactly. This was just the NMOS for those of you who are NMOS fans. And this is an alternative. If you don't want to use our webpage, you can also use the so-called Annemann software, which, to be honest, this is somehow the Dante controller of Ravenna and of AES67, also done by merging, and looks very similar. You see the devices, and you can just make sure that you just route your audio, for example, from Eric's outputs to the inputs of the 9401. And if you're on PC, there are also solutions. For example, to be honest, sorry, I did not have the time to check all of these, but I found one that is also featured on the website by Lavo. Lavo, is a manufacturer of really, really huge mixing consoles that offer a lot of options. So these consoles really can handle hundreds of input channels. And they also have a software for PC, which then makes use of WDM, for example. You might realize that a lot of things are a little easier on Mac if it comes to core audio, but I heard about that Windows 11 is trying to optimize a few things, because every time it's about virtual sound cards and all of these things, it's really easy to implement on Mac, and it's a nightmare from time to time on PC. So this is the problem. And but as said, this solution is called Relay. So also there's a 3. They just call it Relay VSC. And once again, what you should check if you are looking for something, these two things are checked. You can use it. Yeah, and finally, let's just show. I would like to show you a basic setup for immersive audio and audio over IP. So you start with a computer. Hopefully you have a GLM kit already because you have some SAM speakers. You can also use the 9320, which replaces the GLM kit completely. So you also have the measurement microphone then. And then you have a nice speaker setup. For example, this one, which is already a really large one, a 714. And as you can see, this is really something we do quite often. You can, of course, combine 3-way speakers with 2-way speakers. The only thing you usually should not do is that you mix, the models in the front. But if it's about budget, and we know that, of course, the one speakers have their price, because we all know that the drivers are handmade and it's just a really, really comprehensive design. But feel free, of course, to use 2-ways for surround and ceiling speakers, for example. And now you have all of these fantastic speakers, and you think, okay, but how is it possible now for me to listen to multi-channel out, for example, from Dolby Atmos Renderer or from Apple Music? Headphone is also possible, but we now want to focus on speakers. You only need the 9401, and that's it. And that's the cool thing. So you don't need an additional interface, no converter, nothing. That's it. Because on your computer, you can install the virtual audio device or a virtual sound card. You run your DAW or the Dolby Atmos renderer. You can run Apple Music, and Apple Music, luckily, is able to output Atmos files the moment it sees a 16-channel output device. So you can just, open your Apple Music and just stream, and that's it. And of course, you need GLM, which is included with SAM, and as an option for this nice headphone, Oral ID would make sense, because then you could enjoy immersive mixes binauralized on headphones as well. So hopefully this wasn't too boring, because I started with all of the technical stuff. What's most important, this device gives you direct access to audio over IP, which has a lot of advantages, especially also, in setups like shown here, because you don't need anything more. For example, our IBC team also was using exactly that. So there is no additional interface needed. It's just enough to work with the 9401. At the same time, it gives you the bass management options that usually is done by 9301. And if you all in all, just, see these points and calculate in your head, then the price point of around 2,600 before tax is fair, I would say. It's really a fair option. Because this is complex, I can only encourage you, if you have questions, of course, just contact us. And I'm absolutely sure that if there are some questions that are really deep into AES67, I will also have to contact someone from this nice, combination of, let's say, association of companies working together. But the cool thing is that they are really, always very helpful, because everyone in this industry knows a standard can only become a standard if it is used and if it is reliable. And the most important thing, if you start to establish a standard, is that, of course, you give manufacturers and customers and all of the guys working with it, the best support that is possible. Otherwise, it will just be, a niche thing. So someone is doing something, but we don't know about it. So if there are issues, these guys are usually, and girls as well, very, very helpful. And that's my thank you slide, once again with the nice UNIO logo on it. I spoke to you that you can reach out to us, and this is the address. So it's support@genelec.com. We are a huge team. No, we are a team of people that is enough, or perfectly, somehow enough to usually reply to you within one day. And this is just, what we are proud of, and hopefully you also enjoy that. And because we enjoy definitely that we also get a lot of really, really interesting feedback from you. So, of course, also critical one, because as said, this is a very important part of it. Otherwise, we also cannot get better. But you are also sharing a lot of positive feedback, and we are really happy to get this. So it's not only me, I'm not speaking for all of my colleagues in support who really enjoy this. It's a really nice way of, somehow working together. It's almost the same thing like being a colleague. So, and now it's time for your questions. And if I just touched my microphone from time to time, I'm really sorry. It happens, and I can give you some rumble. So I will just have to switch over. So I will just bring this up just a second. So otherwise I'm just looking down all the time. It's not nice. So there had been some comments. Fantastic. And now let's see. Just a second. I will just bring this up. Sorry. So, will this install box studio install shown during? You were referring to the image from Stockholm, I guess. These install boxes are available. Yes. Yes. So you can get, this flush mounting kits for the ones monitors. Just ask your local dealer or your local distributor. these are available. And they just make sure, you know, that you have somehow a frame, and then the speakers are attached within it, and the distances, you know, to the borders of this cabinet are just in the correct way, so that the bass reflex port is working and that you have enough cooling also in it, so enough air. And yes, this is available. Is there a release date for the 94.0? How could it be named? I don't know. I could say something like Q2. I don't know. Probably I will now receive some emails, but I think definitely next year. That's for sure. Then we have okay. Yeah. Yeah, this is a tricky question. 4 subs. You are not from a studio, are you? These are, of course, these are brilliant concepts, if you are just making use of multiple subs. Actually, indeed, we have one subwoofer link. So the subwoofer link contains on flag A the bass managed content and flag B the LFE content. But if you want to do some further processing for the subs, you would have to just use several outputs. So let's say you have a 714. 714 already, of course, does not cover 16 channels, so there are enough left. Or you can also make use of the auxiliary, and then indeed you would have to make sure that these channels then are processed externally in a way that it just suits your application, and then of course you can send them using the 9401 to your subwoofers. That's possible. But believe me, we are already discussing about how we could somehow integrate multi-sub management. Once again, you just see we are coming from studios. And in a studio setup, usually 1 or 2 subwoofers, and that's it. And we also usually never use something like a double bass array, that you, for example, make use of subwoofers just sucking out energy because they are absolutely anti-phase. So these things are not that common in studios. But I see the need for it, and I completely can understand it, because, for example, for home cinemas, this is a brilliant option. I also had been in 1 or 2 home cinemas which made use of double bass arrays, and the room, of course, was very symmetrical, and it was really well planned and executed. And then it's fantastic, because then you just have a really precise bass, and also, of course, the complete modal structure is way, way better. Okay, you're looking for MADI optical latency, also very small, and it is a deal breaker for me. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. This is one of the, of course, biggest advantages of MADI optical. As you know, light is pretty fast, so very, very fast. Yes, but unfortunately, we don't offer this. We have a very small latency, and if this is the deal breaker for you, then I'm still happy that you joined me and just had a look at the complete thing. And this is also a nice thing. I will bring this up as well. Olivier, so sorry, but no problem at all, because it's recorded and you can just watch it again. So forever. So this is absolutely no problem at all. Perfect. So I think we are done for today. I don't know how late it is. Oh, I was fast today. Pretty okay. As scheduled. Usually it's plus I don't know, 30 minutes. But as said, now today it was also a little harder for me, because these standards are really, this is pretty, complex stuff. Well, fantastic. Just great. There's one thing I would like to share with you, just because I'm a huge fan of them, and I will just try to make sure that even more people know about them. If you are into music, and if you are a little, open-minded towards big band jazz arrangements, you should check out Snarky Puppy. I think a lot of musicians, of course, know them since a lot of years. But if you have not checked them out, and there's a great chance for every one of us living in Europe, they are recording their next album in Utrecht, Netherlands. And if you know them, they are usually doing this. So they play live, it's recorded, and there is an audience, a small audience, all wearing headphones. So just to make sure that the PA stuff is not completely spoiling everything. And yeah, and if you want to be part of that, just there are tickets available. I was so happy to get one yesterday, and it's not really inexpensive, but I think it's a wonderful experience because these musicians are brilliant, and especially also be part of a production like that because this is highest level. I'm pretty sure there's also audio AoIP. I'm pretty sure, and their sound guys are usually offering you a brilliant mix on headphones already. And this is a really rare case. There are some headphone concerts, of course, but being part of this, including an orchestra, this is the reason why they are in the Netherlands. That Metropole Orchestra, this is their name, is with them from the album Silva. So this was just, to end this because it was a little dry. I think, in the end, it's always about music. So if you have fun traveling to the Netherlands, and I will be there on a Saturday, on a Friday. So if you would like to meet, just let me know. It would be perfect. Thanks. Then I think that's it. Thanks a lot, Jaco, once again for staying with us for so long. Yeah, see you soon in one of our next webinars. Have a really nice evening, day, wherever you are. And thanks for joining.